Hello, friends. Welcome to this special Inner MBA dialogue with Eileen Fisher. We're talking about insights from a conscious business elder. Eileen Fisher, the visionary founder of Eileen Fisher, Inc., renowned for its simple, timeless apparel. Since 1984, Eileen has championed an original concept, a system of shapes that work together to help women get dressed easily, which is the hallmark of the Eileen Fisher brand today. Eileen is a sustainability trailblazer, and she's taken the principles of conscious business and she's made them real. She's lived them. She's someone I admire tremendously, and I admire all the ways she's experimented, innovated, and stayed true for 4+ decades. We're going to hear from Eileen in just a minute. I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity for our current Inner MBA students to be with us here, and you'll have a chance to ask questions of Eileen during the final part of our session today. So please raise your hand when you feel ready and I'll call on you. And I'm also so happy that we're able to bring this to a streaming platform where people who are considering the Inner MBA and joining the Inner MBA in the future have the chance to see what one of our luminary sessions is like, where we interview and have questions and answers with founders and CEOs and people who are putting the principles of conscious business into action. If you're interested in joining a future cohort of the Inner MBA, you can just hit the Learn More button and you'll learn more about the program. Eileen, welcome.
Hi, Tami. Hi, hi, everyone. Thanks. Nice to be here.
It's always great to be with you. Here at the beginning, let's go back to the origin of Eileen Fisher, the brand. And this came to you in, we could say, a type of visual intuition, if you will. Tell us what happened.
Good. I would say that it first came to me in Japan. I was doing graphic design and I found myself in Japan on a project, and the image of the kimono really, landed in my mind, and somehow I just kept seeing it, the shape and that and also it was connected to an idea that it was timeless, they used the same shape for over 1,000 years, probably more, and mostly only that shape. So I was taken with the visual image and taken with the kind of idea of timeless and simplicity.
It's interesting. A word like timeless is often applied to perennial spiritual ideas, perennial philosophy, and the sense of timelessness as in the now. We're always present. There's eternity in this moment. It's interesting. I wonder, do you see some link, if you will, between the visual communication that comes through Eileen Fisher, the brand, and this deep eternal quality of nowness and timelessness? How you see that?
Well, that is a new thought for me. That's a great thought. I like that you're making that connection. I didn't think of it that way, but I think of it that when I'm designing clothes, I think of it that the clothes should live on, not just to belong to this moment, but they shouldn't be wasteful, and they should still work in 10 years, 20 years from now. So I guess there's some kind of sense it's not totally linear time, maybe something like that.
In 2022, you officially passed the CEO baton internally.
Right.
And I'm sure as a founder that was a big deal for
Yeah.
you. And I'm curious to learn more about it, your inner process related to that baton passing. And did you feel you had everything that you wanted in order, or is that a myth that that's even possible?
Oh, it might be possible. It's definitely not all in order. And one of the things that I continue to do is work on the design piece and a blueprint for the design, and still sort of mentoring the designers somewhat. Um, though I feel that um, I feel that a lot of the important ideas and the culture and the way we do things and the concepts of the design are embedded in the people there. So I think it's more, I'm still working. I want to leave a document, because in 5 years or 10 years, when the next, when more different people come, I want them to have a document that is sort of the blueprint of what seems important to me, and in terms of the shapes of the designs of the concept, the culture, the fabrics, all the parts and pieces of it. So I'm working on that with a small team, and uh, that seems meaningful. Um, you know, we'll see. But passing on to a CEO, that was a big step. Uh, and and it's an interesting moment for me now, because of the tariffs, and because each time there was a crisis or a difficult moment, COVID was really a difficult moment for us, as we discussed before. So, I had this feeling, and several different times the company's been through ups and downs. I've had the feeling that I was the only person who could save it somehow. It was a weird thing, because I think, it's something that I understood it. And now I'm trusting that it that it doesn't need me, that there are others who really are in the midst of the puzzle of the problem, and holding that idea that there's a possibility in the problem, that that we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna, it's gonna take us someplace else. So that one of those important ideas on how I operated is how I see them operating. I weave in, and they keep me informed, my CEO and the teams, but I don't live in the middle of the problem thinking I have to actually do it. So that's really a blessing, and it's also kind of scary, but it's good. It's really great, actually.
This looking at business problems, business challenges as a moment of opportunity. I think, Eileen, when I think about your 4-decade career and the things that I would say,
Yeah,
what made Eileen Fisher
yeah,
so brilliant at growing this company through, as you said, its ups and its downs? And we
right,
can talk a little bit more about that, the big challenges, and how you were able to regroup and hone the brand and move forward.
right,
This this visionary capacity you have to see that there's an opportunity in
right,
what looks like really bad news.
right,
Tell,
right.
tell me, like, is that just an immediate response that you have, or how do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's become a kind of immediate response, maybe not totally immediate, but maybe it's a conditioned response, or something that I learned. Like in the very early days, I learned I did this one fabric, and it was called French terry, and I still have French terry on my line. It's a cotton texture. It's wonderful, like a terry kind of fabric. And it was one of my first successful fabrics. And I got a delivery that was something was wrong. They had substituted a yarn, they couldn't get the yarn, so they substituted a finer yarn, and then all of my production was coming in too long, and it wasn't working right, and I had to stop the production and remake everything. Anyway, I remember that I was like, oh my God, I could lose my business. This is really, and I was asking the stores to, try to take this product and see if they could make it work. And it seemed like it was selling anyway. And maybe it found taller customers, or I don't really know how it all worked, but it seemed to work. And I remember after that, realizing that I couldn't sort of be only in one fabric, that I needed. So I started to expand and do different different types of fabric, silk and wool jersey and things like that. And all of a sudden, like my business just exploded. It wasn't just about this one fabric that I was known for. So I started to, I don't know why. I think it was that I had that experience of it being real, that idea that something seemed to be terribly going wrong, and out of it came something. That was a very, very early experience. And so it just, every time something would go wrong, I would be like, I wonder what something good is going to come of this. And it became almost like a joke. Okay, now another problem. What good is going to come of this?
I'd love to hear more of stories like that. And I think I find it tremendously inspiring because being in business for a long time, it is a series of continual problems, disappointments, or you could say challenges and opportunities if we
Right,
want to.
right,
And
right.
I want to develop more of this skill. And I think it's a
Yeah,
tremendous skill, especially at our time where there are so many challenges people are facing.
right. I think I think it's sort of um always up and down, always like it's never quite exactly right. Like I could tell you lots of things that are wrong today. So looking at those things that seem wrong, and you know, like I want to go back, almost back to the beginning again, hang in there with me and see if I can make
Please.
out of this. But um, I have this thing about my vision being almost like downloaded, and I was trying to describe it with the kimono, but it kept coming in more pictures, like these simple box tops and these little square tops, and wide leg pants, and just certain, it kept coming in shapes, and so I felt like I was getting this vision. And so holding that thought, that's kind of the constant filtering. Like I'm holding this idea of what my concept is, or what the thing is. And so it's always like, is this a part of it? Does this fit? Is this right? Is this wrong? Oh, went a little off too much that way, or a little more like this way, or, you know, um, oh God, I'm trying to think how to describe this better. Uh, oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm not quite getting at it. Um, like
Well, you're talking about sort of staying true
staying
in a
true.
feeling way to the vision
Right,
that you received from a design standpoint.
right, right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of ways to think about it. Like there's the culture piece,
Yeah.
there's all the sustainability work. There's, you know, there's what's the vision is. It's almost like it's symbolized by the concepts of the clothing, like what you were talking about before. It's sort of like, I think of the concepts of simplicity, and natural fibers and timeless design, and this idea of a system. I'm always kind of checking, uh, is it simple? Are the systems simple? Is the way we're connecting simple? Is it natural? Like, is natural, oh, then I can go down the rabbit hole of sustainability and natural, and what does that mean? And like, these are big ideas that kind of weave things together along with the timeless idea. Like, I was I keep going back to the clothes. Um, I'm really struck by what you said about that uh, almost spiritual idea, because I'm just thinking about this shape, this square top, and we were just advertising it again yesterday. I'm thinking, wow, that was one of those first shapes that came to me. Uh, so anyway, I keep going back to the clothes, but it is a lot more than that. I
Well,
feel like
and Eileen, we're going to talk more about this because I think, of course, you're a fashion designer, so you would go back
right.
to
So
the
that's it,
clothes
and
because
it's symbolic,
that's
sort of.
your visual portal. And I want to talk about the culture of Eileen Fisher and your
Right,
sustainability practices. But
right.
before we get there, I want a couple more examples of
Mhm. Mhm.
when shit hit the fan, for lack
Oh
of a
yeah,
better way of putting it,
right,
and you saw it as an opportunity.
right. Good. Uh, well, COVID was a perfect example. I mean, whoa, shit hit the fan. Man, I thought we weren't going to make it. Our stores were all closed for 90 days, 3 months, and we had no income and tons of expenses. And, our organic farmers were going to go out of business. I mean, it was not good. So, I remember we were already kind of on this back to simple idea, but I remember thinking, oh, this is my opportunity to really get it back to simple, to really get this idea, because we had grown, and I know I talked with you about this before, so maybe I should go to a different
No,
example.
I think it's an important example because your top line sales, were cut by almost half. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's a tremendous drop, and hard for, I think, many people to see this in a light of, oh, this is an opportunity to
right,
refine what we're doing, why we're doing it. I remember you said to me, Eileen, we can be
right,
profitable at any size.
right,
And
because
I
we
thought,
were,
what a
right.
remarkable, and you turned it around within a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Took about a year. Right. It was amazing. And actually, we ended up making more profit than when we were kind of a little bit out of control. We were doing way too many things. We had 1,000 fabrics on the line. It was just like out of control. So then we were able to also hone our sustainability goals, tighten things up. A lot of good came out of that. And I think that just holding that idea, something good is going to happen here. Something's trying to happen, and trying to see the way through it. And even now with the tariffs, we're saying the same thing again. And I'm not in the midst. I hear the team saying it. Okay, this is another opportunity to simplify again, because here we are simplified all the designs and really simplified down to, but we still make too many simple things. So we have to, which gets confusing, I think, for the customers. And, so we have to edit, and so that I hear the team saying what I was saying. We have another opportunity to come back and to simplify and to get back to the essence of what's really this thing about.
And then when it comes to putting your values into the sustainability initiatives,
Oh,
you were sharing with me that even in your current approach, and you can share a bit with our listeners about the Waste No More program and
right.
what it is and why you set it up and what the challenges are that you're facing today and how you're
Oh, that's a
looking at
great
it.
one. That's a great one, Tammy. Um, okay, let's see. Uh, well, first of all, to get to the Waste No More project, you have to know, and maybe people already know, we were the first to do a real recycling program, and it kind of came, it just came out of the employees having too many clothes, because we have to try them and all of that. And employees brought their clothes. And then, actually, this is kind of another interesting aspect, the way the energy works. But so the employees bring their clothes back. The customers see the clothes that the employees brought back. The customers want to bring their clothes back. So we start this big program of bringing the clothes back 15 years ago. And then what happens, and this is another visual thing for me, that you start to see the buildup of the clothes that we can't sell. So 50% of the clothes we can resell, clean, resell. We got a great little business going with recycling the clothes, and it's great. It's a side business, and customers should know about it. It's called Renew. Anyway, it's a great thing. But what ended up happening for us is, after a few years of this, and we were only selling half of what we were making, and we were giving away to charity and some of the other stuff. But so we were stuck with maybe 30% of the product, and we couldn't figure out what to do. So, so we were making things, remaking things, doing different things, mending things, over dyeing, trying all kinds of things. And then one of the employees came up with this idea of felting. So we were felting, taking these old clothes, leftover clothes, and putting them through these felting machines and making these beautiful pillows and wall hangs. And I was like very excited, like, oh my goodness, we have another whole business here. And so over time, we were investing like $1 million a year in this program, and I was very passionate about it. We were all passionate about it. And during COVID, we actually held on to it even when it was really questionable whether we could or should. So we had to kind of finally accept that it just wasn't wasn't happening. We weren't able to sell it. We couldn't put the resources to, we couldn't, it was artisanal product and it's beautiful and it's expensive and valuable, but we just don't have a market developed, and it's another whole project. So we began to realize that it wasn't scalable, that we weren't going to get rid of this 30% pile that has now is 3 warehouses full of stuff. So we're looking at the problem, and now this visual problem, it's an image that I see, these warehouse full of stuff. We can't fix it through our recycling efforts, and we begin to realize that actually we can't kind of recycle our way out of this problem. What are we going to do? So we realize we have to stop it at the source. So we kind of stop the recycling project. We start the recycling project. We stop the Waste No More project, and we start to do other things. We realize this waste problem isn't just us. If we've been doing this for 15 years and we are still sitting with a lot of stuff, we don't want to send it to landfill. We're committed, but what does that mean for the world? What does that mean for fast fashion? What's happening with all the waste? Where's it going? With landfills, whatever. So we ended up turning our foundation to focus on it, and hired a company to put together a report. What could we do about the waste problem? What are people doing? How is it possible? And so they did this big study. It's called Hey Fashion, and they laid out 8 different possible ways to deal with the waste problem. And it became even more clear that the whole world can't recycle our way out of this textile waste problem. 3 out of every 4 garments that are produced are destroyed or discarded within 1 year. So that's 75% of every garment made by the fashion industry is destroyed or discarded or ended up in landfill. I'm like, where is it all going? It's going to the global south. There are massive amounts of waste piles in Chile and Ghana, and I don't want to overwhelm you, but this is a visual that I get really clearly seeing these pictures, And so what's coming to me about it is, our company can't recycle our way out of this. The industry can't recycle our way out of this. We are in a big situation. And so now the visions that are coming to me, I'm seeing us as this little organic farm out there in the Midwest. I come from the Midwest, all of this, conventional farming, corn farms, but so I see us as this little or middle-sized organic farm, and I'm realizing that, oh my goodness, we can be this great little prototype. We could even meet our 100% sustainable goals, which was our Vision 2020. I'm skipping around, but okay. So we could meet these goals, but our kids are still going to get sick. We're going to get sick because we're breathing the same air. We're drinking the same water, and I'm just kind of getting more and more overwhelmed. What's possible? What can we do? So now I'm seeing that, like, I know something. Like, I'm a person who operates in a place of like not knowing. I really like that idea of not knowing. And I started my business like, I'm a curious person. I'm like, how do I do this? I don't know anything about clothing design. Help me figure this out. So I like this not knowing kind of idea. But now I'm getting this message, and it's coming visually with the piles of stuff, but it's also coming like, I need to speak. I need to do something, which is part of like, not here. This is not exactly the message here, but for the industry, I'm starting to try to speak to the industry. I'm realizing
Wonderful.
we change everything. Like, 50% of the clothes we make are made with polyester or synthetics. That's like plastic bags, and it's ending up in the oceans. We have to stop it at the source. We've got to figure it out. And so now I'm trying to show up at this CEO meetings and these different things. We're organizing to help educate designers. We're just looking at what can we do, try to create some online convenings. Anyway, that's where I am. I'm being called for some reason,
Let me just ask another question, because I understand that the size of the problem is so immense that
Right.
a recycling program for an organic farm in the Midwest is not going to solve it.
Right.
What do you think are the biggest levers that will create real movement change?
Well, I think we have to figure out about synthetics. I don't know, like outlawing plastic bags. I don't know. Outlaw virgin poly. I don't know because it doesn't biodegrade. So that's a problem. I think regulation, like that we need to be accountable for what we produce and what happens to it. Um, to be transparent, where it comes from, what it's made of, and where it goes. So I know that that's happening a little bit in Europe. Maybe we can learn from them. I think we have to collaborate. I think we have to the whole system has to change. So we've got to like do what you're doing, gather people to think, try to think differently and step above, you know, uh, of the current way we think. And it's a difficult problem, because CEOs are responsible for the bottom line, you know, and they don't really want to boil the ocean or even, I hate to say, worry about the ocean, They they need to be profitable, as do we. So, we have to work together in a sort of pre-competitive way to change the industry.
I want to pull out one sort of wisdom thread here, which is, something good's going to happen when these
Right.
really difficult challenges happen. And then in talking about the ecological crisis, you said being in the unknown, the uncertainty, that's a place that you feel okay in. You're
Right.
comfortable being uncertain. I think for a lot of people, that feeling of uncertainty or unknown is very destabilizing,
Right.
something they want to reject. That even I
Right.
said, well, where are the levers? I want an answer. I'm not going to,
Right.
I want to know. So tell me how you work with that when you're in an unknown moment.
Okay. First of all, um, that's great that you think that I'm good at that, that I am stable in the unknown. I am very uncomfortable in the unknown, but I'm an uncomfortable person, so I'm familiar with being uncomfortable. That's why I make comfortable clothing, you
There
know.
you go. Comfortable clothing to be uncomfortable all the
To be
time.
uncomfortable so that we can be with our discomfort, So I'm really uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable what's happening with the tariffs. I was uncomfortable, but uncomfortable, you know, isn't a good reason to not face the fear or not be with what's happening, So I still, in my discomfort, try to get out of bed and show up. And what can I do? I have my little practices. I can tell you about those I sometimes I really wake up like I used to for years. I woke up with my hands like this, like in a fear state, and then how do I recognize the anxiety or the fear and be with it and figure out not to run away, not to do things to just keep busy, which I can do. Entrepreneurs, we're good at that, keeping busy, um, but to actually sit with and be with the fear and get the messages from the fear, like if I let fear stop me, I wouldn't come to this today because I'm terrified. Honestly, I'm speaking is not my gift, um, but I feel, it's interesting because I met with Gloria Steinem about 20 years ago. We were speaking together at an event, and I said to her, I am so nervous. I'm terrified. I'm like, do you ever get nervous? And she said, oh, I used to get nervous all the time. She said, but I always felt I had something important to say. And that's what moved me to keep going. And I think that's the same here, like we're afraid, we're uncertain, but that's life, isn't it? I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You could get hit by a car. I mean, anything could happen. So I would say I just try to not let it get the better of me. I try to stay in the mid. I try to ground myself in the midst of the fear.
Eileen, let's talk more about that because that image of waking up with your hands clenched
Right.
People don't necessarily know when they admire somebody as I admire you. And I think many people do for what you've accomplished. And the tremendous way, I'll use my language, you've remained true
Mm.
to your values in a really difficult, toxic, competitive industry.
Yeah.
And you have stuck it out. And so yet here you are, and the inner, we're using a word discomfort, but waking up with your hands clenched, I'm familiar with that. It's even a kind of inner torment, if you will. It's hard, and yet you've persevered. And so I'd love to know what you've learned as you've grown Eileen Fisher. How has Eileen Fisher grown and changed you and given you a skill set to work with these difficult inner states?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, I would say two things to that. The Eileen Fisher, I would start with just one of the what I do and what helps me with my own discomfort is that I have my morning ritual and I journal. I've been journaling since I was 25. And sometimes it makes absolutely no sense. Sometimes it's just a to-do list. It's just I sit and I drink my coffee and I write 3 pages in 5 or 10 minutes and just get it out, what is going on. And some of that brings me messages, what I need to do, you know, how I, what's important now, that kind of thing. So then I do yoga, I meditate and I do yoga every morning. I've been doing that for 20 years and that helps me with the fear. It helps me to be with the uncomfortableness. We take a moment of silence at the company. We ring a chime before meetings. That is sort of a grounding practice that helps me. I don't know if it helps everybody, but it helps me. So maybe I do it for me. But you asked me something else. I was going to speak about the Eileen Fisher Company and how it's grown me. Well, one thing is I'm a visual person, so I've had to, and I still struggle with this. I have to learn to speak and to articulate what is, this idea about. What is not, learning to speak and learning to kind of keep going in the hard times. What has it taught me? How to, I, yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's good.
a little
I
more.
want to, I want to, I want to cue in again to your visual, symbolic
Yeah,
way of communicating because it's very
yeah,
powerful. And in terms of the shapes, the essential shapes of the clothing, I
right,
get that. In terms of the mountain of clothing, I can
right,
see that, and that, we're never going to be able to. I'm curious when it comes to the culture
right,
of Eileen
right.
Fisher.
That's good.
And because you've done tremendous innovations at a cultural level, and I want to highlight a couple of them. But
Okay.
is there a visual analog, if you will, at the organization cultural level for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think of it as sort of energetic. We're collaborators. I'm a collaborator. I'm from a big family. I like to check out what I'm thinking. I like to hear. I like to feel where the energy is. So maybe circles is a thing, you know. Um, Culturally, there's the other thing on the cultural thing. I could go down a whole thing about the cultural thing. Um, yeah, I like that image of circle. Let's see. Uh,
Well, the circle's a powerful image, and I had a feeling, that was my intuition, that you were going to
Interesting.
use the image of the circle because it is so powerful, and also because of the notion of creating greater equity at work is something you've
Uh-huh.
really put into practice
Right,
at Eileen Fisher. And I wonder if you
right,
can share a bit. I mean, you have an ESOP program
right,
that
right,
purchased some of your founding shares, and it's
right.
very unusual. And
Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit about the philosophy underneath it, but also what's working and perhaps what's not working about setting
Right.
up an ESOP.
Right. Well, first of all, I would say that in the early days and when the company started to really thrive, the first thing I really wanted to do was share profits. So every year, I would give profit sharing bonuses. So we take a percentage of the profits, at least 10%, sometimes more, and share it with the employees at the end of the year. And it was this idea. I mean, I guess I say I come from a big family. Sharing was something we did always as kids. There were three girls and, we shared the same bedroom. We wore each other's clothes. We had three times as many clothes to wear. So there was this idea that, sharing makes things better. Sharing gets people's energy involved. So people felt like owners even before we did the ESOP. And the ESOP was just kind of, I think, an extension, sort of like a put it on paper document. Like, what is it that the people get a piece of, and over time, I mean, that has its that there are some issues as the company ages that people who've been around longer have more shares, and then what about new people, and how do you bring in talent? And so we've had to add some different components to the packages and stuff that but it still works. I still think it's a really important component, the kind of caring. Even now during the tariffs, people are saying, what can we do? How can we help? They really feel that they're a part of this.
Uh, Continuing on this notion of financial remuneration and how you've approached it at Eileen Fisher. I read in an article, this was several years ago, that you were paying the designers and the people who worked in the creative departments above industry standard,
Yeah,
and that you were willing to pay them above the industry standard and paying them more like people who might be
right,
rewarded in finance and operational leadership roles, because
right,
Eileen Fisher is a creative company. And I
right,
thought, I've never really known how to pay people except by mirroring whatever
right,
the industry benchmarks are and be like, oh,
right,
that's the industry benchmark. That's what we
right,
pay people. But you
right.
decided, no, we're going to have our own philosophical approach here. And I was really impressed by that, Eileen. So tell me more about it.
Well, that sounds good. And I have to say that we've had to bring in some other higher level leadership as the company got bigger. So that was more of like how I felt, and I equalized things when the company was smaller. So it's it. I actually now have to admit that I respect the complexity of leadership in another way. Not that I don't respect the creatives, because creatives make a huge difference in, just finding a new fabric or a new style. It can really, make a big difference. And this level of complexity, it's kind of like another layer of leadership, that we needed to add. And partly me leaving, partly, drawing in that kind of talent it takes to manage this size of company, I think. So it's true, and, you know.
Okay, so let's go back to for a moment to the circle, because I want to
Mm.
make sure that I don't know, there's this notion of a seed syllable. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase. It's in Tibetan Buddhism, but there's this seed syllable. And what it means is it's like what's underneath
Mm.
what becomes the teaching. And I feel like we got the seed syllable in terms of the designs and in
Right,
terms of the sustainability
right,
and where we are right now
right,
in our human development. Give me
right.
the seed syllable, if you will, for the collaborative cultural component. Like, what in you is really that anchoring philosophical idea underneath it?
Right. Well, I think that it's interesting because years ago, I'm remembering that I wrote down like 10 philosophies before we started doing any leadership work or people and culture or any of that. And I wrote down the ideas that I thought were important to how we should run this company, you know. And one of them was listening. Like, I think we're good listeners, that we really listen to each other, that, um, I said no ego. Show up and engage with others with no ego. Ideas come from all kinds of places. I mean, that's amazing at my company. People, it's, I don't know, people work together in such lovely ways. And I don't think anybody talks about no ego anymore, though I wrote it in the early days. It's how people show up. Um, no ego, listening, the circle thing. We've done so many things over the years, but I feel like there was more to this. What are the seed things? Not knowing was something. That's why I'm struggling with, I know something now, because not knowing and showing up with curiosity. Like, why do you think that? Huh? What do you like that better? Or do you think that's better? Do you think we should do that? Like really being curious how others think or, what others are bringing. That's interesting to me. I'm getting lost in what were my 10. And that's not so important as, lots of other things. We did a lot of different programs over the years too, but did I land on anything that was relevant to you in terms of some of those seed ideas?
Yeah, I
Am I
think
still
the
not quite
no
getting
ego, I think the no ego, even if it's not language you use today,
right,
that really communicates the circle idea in a
right,
way that I can feel it
right.
now, and
And
seeing you
caring, I'm
as
sorry.
oh, that's very good. Let's put
Caring.
that
I
in.
forgot that was one of them. Caring for people, caring for each other, you know, caring. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, because I liked where you were going. Um, but also the human rights piece, caring for people in the supply chain. That's always been a really important thing for us. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, you were summarizing and I cut you off. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right.
I'm
I have just a
not a good
couple more
listener
questions.
sometimes.
And no, you are, Eileen, you're an extraordinary listener, actually. Uh, just a couple more questions, then I'm going to open it up here to our Inner
Curious.
MBA
Yeah.
friends in the Zoom room.
Oh,
So
good.
please feel free to use the hand raiser function, and I'll call on you in just a moment. All right, Eileen, this is a question you can ask in retrospect. Any regrets?
Uh, well, I think this is a hard one because I think that my regrets have more to do, and my daughter's not going to like me if I say this. I hope she. Uh, but my regrets are that when the company was smaller and my kids were young, that it was really a hard balancing act, and I'm not sure I always prioritized my kids in the way I should have. So that's a personal regret that I've been living with and working with for years, and um, trying to forgive myself and let go. Um, but regrets in terms of the company, I mean, I regret the places where I feel uh, like I feel where I wasn't as fully me, where I didn't show up as clear, or where I struggled to communicate. But I also forgive myself because I only knew what I knew and I did the best I could. And I think it was good enough in the end, even though I regret missed opportunities for showing up in stronger ways or clearer ways. Or, you say I'm a role model. That's very kind,
I
and
mean it. I
that's
mean it.
very kind. And I always feel like I could have been a better role model to the people at the company. I try to be kind. That's another thing. I try to be kind, but uh, I could be clearer. I could have been stronger. I could have, you know, like you're very clear, Tami. I like the way you summarize and you're clear. I have to work very hard to make a few points, and I haven't always done that. I've been uh, not as clear as I would have liked to be. Clarity is
Well,
a goal.
so I'm going to make sure that we're extraordinarily clear about something right now, which is when you said, I have to overcome my fear of public speaking to do
Yeah,
this with you,
yeah,
Tami. It's hard for me. It's hard. It's a
yeah,
challenge, but I'm going to take it on and do it because I have a sense that there's something important to
yeah,
be shared
yeah,
that will be helpful, will be good medicine for people. So
yeah,
I want to make sure before we open it up to questions here, I want to make sure that that's coming through. And so is there something inside of you, a sort of soul message, if you will, that you want to make sure is communicated here, which is why you're willing to go through the
Good.
torture of talking to me in front of other people, you
That's
know?
good.
Is it coming through, Eileen? Because I want to
Yeah.
give you a
I
shot
mean,
at it.
I think, yes, I think what I want to say is what's been hard for me as an entrepreneur is like to prioritize myself, to take good care of myself in the midst of this thing that takes me away, that needs me, that I would say that's really for entrepreneurs that would be if I have advice or message, I wish I would have taken better care of myself throughout. Now I eat well. I've been doing my yoga and meditating and all that for 20 years. In the early days, I was pushed and pulled in a million directions, and it was hard. And it's not that it isn't hard, but I would say take good care of yourselves, whatever it is that you need to do. And also, like the yoga meditation, it doesn't have to be that. Whatever is your practice for coming back to yourself and being in touch with yourself and knowing what you're feeling, even if it's terror or discomfort, just to be able to be with it and like for me, I'm always trying to forgive myself, like, take good care. Um, like if you're on a mission, you're on a mission, and that's important, but you have to keep yourself strong and healthy and those kinds of things.
That's a very, very, very important message. And it lands, I think, in a very important way for me, and I think for many of our listeners. And it brings me to the last question I want to ask you, Eileen, before we open it up here, which is there's a way I feel about Sounds True, which has also been in existence now for 4 decades, where it's very hard for me to language how much and how I love Sounds True.
Hmm.
And, I was talking to Melissa Bernstein, who is the entrepreneur in residence, part of the Inner MBA. And she was talking about when she went through the process of selling Melissa and Doug, that just when she heard the name of the company for 2 years, she cried. And uh, it's like, it's so hard, I think, for a founder. And in your case, your brand carries your name, to describe why and how you would sacrifice so much, and what that quality of care, investment. I'm just wondering if you could share a bit of how it feels for you.
Yeah, like maybe the company's my first child, something like that. I have 2 kids and the feeling is different, um, but I care very much. I mean, this interesting thing about at different crisis moments, should we sell the company? Is that a thing? And I've always said no, I mean, almost that I'd almost close it before I would sell it. And that probably sounds crazy, because I don't know. I mean, unless somebody really understood what I was trying to do and cared in that way. You know, but yeah, it's very important, I very, yeah, I can't find the words.
All right. And with that, I'm going to leave that in the ineffable
Okay. Sorry.
category. Let's call on Terry Ann.
Well, I'm about to cry, so thank you both,
Uh,
Mike and Tammy. Tammy, I'm back in the cassette days of buying cassettes from you guys. All right, that's how long I go. And Eileen, this is a story. I love what you said about fear, showing up and telling us that too, and also the unknown, following the energy.
uh,
So here's a huge thank you that you don't even know of. That back in the 90s, I lived in New York and I was starting a jewelry line. I was at an art show. Your people found me. I had 9 contracts for your opening stores in New York City.
oh,
Yeah, I think before you brought your jewelry in, but one of them was these little beaded bags, and it was an ancient beading technique. Now, here's the really interesting thing. Some shamans were coming through our town. They're at a bookstore, private bookstore, and they came through and they saw me making these, and they said, "Wow, this is an ancient beading technique. Can we bless your hands?" And I said, "Yes." Very shortly after that, my world started falling apart, not because of the blessing, but because I was having these contracts and all the things anyway. Those blessings led me to my very first spiritual teacher, and jewelry and being in the industry supported me and my children. I was a single mom then. And now I do the spiritual work full time. And I still
Right.
use the teachings and the stitching and the beading as just a way to connect. But just following that energy and never knowing where it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah, I was also part of your red tent in New York with the Omegans.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So
Me
I
too.
have followed you and seen all that you've done,
Nice.
the consciousness you talk about today and showing up. So I'm very grateful to thank you and know that we never do know where things are going to guide us. But
Never
thank you
know.
so much. And Tammy, thank you for having
Oh,
me. And yes, thank you.
thank you, Terry. Ann. Thank you.
Wonderful. We have Jenny next.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just so inspired by this whole conversation and all of the pieces we touched. I am a mom of three little kids, 10, 8, and 6 right now. And I keep telling myself, I'm not playing small, I'm being patient. And it's so hard sometimes because I know, like, it's like I can see different versions of my life where I'm like, if I just drove this, I could be like so different in a success lane. But at the same time, like this is my success lane and it's what I'm choosing right now. But I hope I still get to these visions and heights that I see. And oh, it's just exciting to hear this from you and like what you would have done differently. And I don't doubt that you would have still gotten to your places and done all of this incredible work because it's just so soul centered. And I feel that from you. And it's even just you being here, it's not necessarily about the words you're saying, it's your presence. Like I feel you. You were talking and like my whole body just I feel you and it is so cool.
Oh, that's so
So you must have amazing communications people around you too. And that's also part of what is so important, like that we surround ourselves with people
Oh, that's a good one.
who get us and can translate like I have this vision and I need you to put it into words, or I have this thing and I just need you to understand me. And it's just that kind of osmosis when people really get each other that it can just transmit that way. And I see that
So
that's
good.
how you're operating culturally too.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I wanted to say something about that, but I'm thrown back to you and the kids. And like that you're prioritizing your kids, like what I was saying, that how I didn't as much, you know. Um, but I guess I did want to say that when you do both, when you try to do both, when you start to do both, the one thing that I would have wished that I had done better when I had the kids and I was working is I wish that I could have separated better and been present where I was. Like when I was with my kids, forget the work, leave the reports, stop this, don't think about it. If something pops into my mind, it's a picture, it's a vision, that's fine. But when I was with the kids, I wish I'd just, I don't know, done that. And then when I was working, like try not to worry too much. Like, oh no, where are they? Where did they go? Like just trust, that kind of thing. Anyway, be uh, be where you are. That's a weird thing. Okay. Like yeah. And good luck with. I hope all your dreams come true. It sounds like you're on a good path. Wonderful.
Thank you. Is there any way we can keep in touch with you, Eileen?
Um, Diane, you have any thoughts on that? I can't give my email because it's out of control. I get lost.
We'll put in, I'll ask Steve here to put into the chat an
Okay.
Inner MBA email, and then he'll be able to forward that on to Eileen's team.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you.
Steve can put that in the chat.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. All
Thank
right.
you.
We'll
Jenny.
call on Lisa now.
Thank you very much. I was so interested in the part of your presentation where you talked about all the extra garments and the things that you made out of them. And the vision I got out of that was a kind of repair,
Oh, right.
right? And I wanted to ask you a little bit more, if you have a story that comes to your mind about a time in your organization where repair was necessary, maybe in your team, or
Uh-huh.
you'll know a story,
You mean,
and how you got through that.
oh, you mean emotional repair? You're not talking about clothing repair.
Not clothing repair, right?
Because I
Yeah.
thought you were doing this with your hand.
Yeah. No, I was, yeah, sorry. I'm getting there. I was
Good.
using that as like my visual.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is back to what Jenny was saying about the people part has been a little not my best gift. So that is the repair part is so important. And, the way people work together and the energy between people. And we have a whole team, people and culture team. We have people who are really dedicated to doing that. And they probably would have many, there could be, you could pick one of them and have a great conversation with them. But it's so important to sit with people and help people understand each other and, what went wrong and let people talk to each other. And, but I'm just not the one who usually does it, so I don't have real specific things. I can talk about it in my private life,
So for you, was that a flat side of your leadership that you identified early on and said, I've got to have some people?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay with that.
There were a couple areas. One is that I'm terrible at organizing. And so I had to have people. I hired, in the early days, I hired the woman who lived downstairs from me in my apartment because she was so organized, and she really helped for many years, organized everything, like the whole business side, she organized. I mean, I was good at business. I had a good sense of it, but she did the organizing and the people piece. That was pretty early on too, that I realized, whoa, the people piece takes a lot of work and it's super important. And people need to be really heard and connected with and understood. And so, we started hiring. We hired it was HR at that point. Now we think of it as people and culture because it's so important to us. And we did over the years lots of workshops and things. But I guess that it's not so easy to do for a small company. But we actually took a group of people to Omega one time. That was very interesting. I'm looking for things to tell you, but I feel like I'm talking outside of my gift area. But
I am curious about something, Eileen, which is how would you summarize your hiring approach, philosophy, what you personally looked for? Because I know this idea of bringing around you really aligned, high quality talent has been a big part of what's driven your success.
Right.
And, did you learn from making bad hires? What did you
Yes.
learn from that? And what's your hiring guide now in retrospect?
Right. I think, yes, you need the skill or the talent that you're looking for, of course, but we also look for people who fit our culture, people who feel like they get us or that they belong in some way, that they're like, it's almost like they're humans in a way that's beyond the specific skill they bring, so the way I don't know what they do in their spare time, what they care about, those kinds of conversations are part of the interview process. So, and I think feeling gotten is a really good, good thing. In the early days, I hired people. It was kind of very energetic. People gravitated towards, me and toward the work. they'd come into the store and say, oh, like, oh man, I really want to do your windows. I like all these great ideas. And I'm like, oh, cool, you know, or I just love what you're doing. And, you know, are you hiring? Stuff like that. Again, that gets harder now. And it's hard. I was doing something visual, so it drew people in. So I'm not really sure, but I did it even before. Yeah, I'm about energy. I watch what lights people up. You know, like I can see their eyes light up. If they're interested in what you're talking about, you know, they're there with you. And then you know, they add things that you feel like, oh, that's interesting. That person can do that. That'd be cool. You know, that's good. You know, so I don't know, reading energy. I think that's another gift I have. Yeah.
Tell me more about that, because that's very interesting.
Yeah.
You said the eyes are lighting up. What else are you tracking what's going on in your own body in
Oh, yeah.
response to someone, or are you seeing
That-
certain things, or what is it?
Interesting. Very good. I like your questions, Tammy. I don't think about these things. I sense like I can feel uplifted by certain people and certain like garments even. That's weird to say, oh, I love that fabric, or or that person interests me, or something, that conversation was really interesting, you know? So it's something lights me up, and some other things, you know, like if I see photographs I'm not happy with, or a garment that doesn't work for me, or if I think, you know, somebody's conversation is off or something, it's almost like a heaviness or a darkness, or I can feel a sadness or something, you know? And then sometimes I feel like my group is like, Eileen is happy about that. They're reading my energy too, which I don't know, there's mixed on that, but it's something good about that, tuning into people's energy, you know, there's something about that.
Well, I also think it's very interesting that when I asked you about your hiring guide, the first thing you said is hiring humans. And, you know, we live in a world where that means something. And, you know, like, is the person authentic? Are they
Right, that's good.
congruent? Do I feel that I can trust this human being? They have feelings and
Right.
contradictions and
Right.
possibly inner torments as well. They're not like wearing 4 layers of masks
Right.
trying to, you know, oh, you're a
Authentic.
human. Yeah.
That's very good, Tammy. Yeah. I have to work on articulating more of what's happening, but that's good. I like that word. Authentic is something I care a lot about. When a person feels authentic. Yeah.
All right, here's my final question for you, Eileen, and we'll
Oh, for
close
me,
our
another question. I was
conversation
like,
with this.
yeah.
We're gonna close with this, which is, in the Inner MBA program, it's divided into these 3 sections. We start with working on ourselves. You mentioned your own journaling, yoga, meditation. We become aware of awareness so that we can actually note our thoughts and emotions and not just be dragged all around by them. And we work with our nervous system. Wonderful. Second part of the program, it's about collaboration and listening and communication and
Right.
working. Wonderful. The third part of the program, which is the part I want to ask you about, because we're here in the Inner MBA and it's coming to a close for participants very soon, is what our organizations can do to actually be a true force in our society and to create change. And I think a lot of people are feeling like, really, how much can we do? I mean, it's all sliding down into polycrisis deconstruction. You know, I want to keep my organization as an island of sanity in the midst of all of this, but how much can we really contribute? And I wonder how you see that.
Oh, that's so excellent. It's funny because it reminds me of, in the early days, I was all about designing clothes and trying to get it right and all of that. And I got invited to Social Venture Network. You know, the Social Venture Network, Ben and Jerry and all those people. And it was the first time I heard, oh, be a force for good. Business can make the world better, can make change. And, you know, I kind of came back with that thought. And what's so interesting is that I don't even have to decide what it is. You know, it's other people are thinking about it all the time. You know, like, how can I make a difference? You know, like people who work in the stores will say things like, you know, sometimes I feel like a therapist. I'm really trying to support the women to feel better about themselves, or to make sure they get the things that look right and feel right for them. So there's so many ways everyone in the organization can be a force for good, and how to give people permission. What does that actually mean? I mean, right now we're very much in the sustainability path, and that came from others. It began with others. I didn't tell that whole story, but, I wasn't thinking about, sustainability. I was just thinking natural fibers. So something about, yes, absolutely. You're talking about like addressing some of the issues. Like, I know I've been thinking, should I be a part of those lawsuits on the tariffs? Like, I don't know, what can we do? And we have at different times, we speak up in different ways, I mean, we always feel like we're trying to do what we do with the sustainability piece, because there's so many ways. Anyway, but yes, businesses can be a force for good. The other thing I want to say about it is I think it creates meaningful work for people. When people feel like they're a part of something that feels meaningful, that they can personally find a way to make a difference, or that the organization is working to make the world better, that makes people more loyal and connected and feeling like their lives matter. Like they're not just making money and trying to survive, but they're actually a part of something that feels meaningful. So yes.
Insights from
Go
a
ahead.
conscious business elder. Eileen Fisher, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of the Inner MBA and for bringing your light and your terrific positive energy and your care always that I feel from you, your deep generosity and care for, yes, the people of Eileen Fisher and your customers, but for all of us, for the collective. I really feel it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Tami. Thank you, all of you. Thanks for your questions and thoughts, and good luck to all of you. And don't forget to take good care of yourselves.
Thank you, friends. And for those of you interested in the Inner MBA and joining us in future cohorts, please click the Learn More button on the stream, and we'd love to have you with us in future sessions of the Inner MBA. Thanks, friends. Thank you, Eileen.
Like a great class, Tami.